So hi and welcome back. We will continue working with the blog. So for now, we want to polish our blog a little bit with Bootstrap. So I will integrate Bootstrap into the blog. It will not become much prettier, but it's still a start, and then we can move on and make it look like a real blog later on. But for now, let's just focus on integrating Bootstrap. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to bootswatch.com. So right here, I'll just type in bootswatch.com like that. And here we can choose different Bootstrap themes. So I would just take this one, which I like, the Lumen. So I will download the minified CSS file. I already have it in my right here, so I will just copy it, and actually what I can do is I can open Visual Studio Code and I can just take this one and I will actually create a folder in my source folder. So here I will name it themes, and I can just throw in the actual file like this. Right now it says 1, so I will just remove that, and this looks good. And the next thing we want to do is that we want to just run the server, the dev server. So one thing that I want to do is I want to install Bootstrap for React. So I'll actually just close this server because I don't want to have it at the moment. I will basically install React Bootstrap. So when people integrate Bootstrap into React, since we're using Gatsby, we know that we're also using React. So people sometimes they go with what's called React Strap, and that's a library, and others go with React Bootstrap, which is what I will go with. So I will run npm I for install. So npm I React Bootstrap, and this will download React Bootstrap for me. And now the React Bootstrap library is downloaded and installed. So I can move on, and actually what I want to do is to go to their documentation. So it's called reactbootstrap.github.io, and here they have different components. And one thing that we're missing in the Gatsby blog at the moment is a layout component, which is a shared layout component. And we would want to use that component because in that way we can also apply global CSS styles. So I will show that right now. So in the source folder, I will create a new folder which is called components, and here I will add 2 new files, so layout.js and layout.css, and I will show you what I mean by that in a moment. So for now, in this file, layout.js, I want to add a React function component. So I have this extension, which is the code extension, which allows me to simply create snippets really quickly. So RFC is one that I use a lot. It's just a simple snippet for creating a React component very quickly. So now I want this to be a container, a Bootstrap container. So I will go to the documentation, and in the layout they have what's called a container. I'm interested in the actual import because I need that in my file, so I just copied it, and now I can paste it right here, and I will replace the div with a container. And we're not done yet because we have to import the layout components now in our page. So this will now become we will wrap the layout component around each page which we want to have every page where we want to apply the layout, we will simply import it and wrap it around it. So this div will also be the layout. And let me just start the development server. Hopefully we'll see a difference. So I think that it's being applied at the moment. Let me just write something here. So layout. And if we open the, yeah. So one thing that's missing right now, which is also good to know, because at the moment we saw that we were seeing nothing. And the reason is that we have to use what's called the children property. So React exposes this property in the props, and we need to basically use that so that everything that's between the opening and the closing tags will also be rendered. So now we see the actual blog as before. One thing that I need to look at right now is, do we actually get the container? Because it looks as if we're not getting it at the moment. So it seems as if it's not really applying the container. Oh yeah, it is. It is actually applying it, but we need to import the Bootstrap CSS file too, and we have to do it in a as global place as possible. So I would say that why not just do it in the layout. So here I will import the Bootstrap from the themes bootstrap.min.css. And now hopefully we will see something different. Or maybe it's not the correct place to place it. I will add it here instead. Yeah, so that did it. So basically I added it in the index file, index.js, and now we can see the actual style being applied. A different thing I want to do now is I want to apply a new font. So I'll go to fonts.google.com because I want the Open Sans font. And that's also one of the reasons why I basically added the layout component, because it will allow us to apply this global font. So Open Sans, there it is. And I have to pick the styles that I want. So I want the regular and the bold. And here we have the import because I want to basically add it through CSS. So like that, and then in the layout.css, I will import it like this, and I will also apply it to every single tag on the page. So every single element will have Open Sans, and we will have a fallback font of sans serif. I also have to import this into my layout, so import layout.css. And now if we go back, we should see a change, and yes, we do. So we actually saw the font changing, and if I inspect this and go to the font family, we see that it's now Open Sans. So this is perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. So this doesn't look very pretty, but it's a start, as I said, and later on we can focus on really improving the blog so that it really looks like a blog. But for now, as I said before, we want to set up the basics, the foundations, and have our blog spinning and have a functioning environment, and then we can focus on improving the actual looks and the look and feel of the application. So let's continue working with this blog. And another thing that we want to have, which we don't have at the moment, is that we want to have this slug, so to say. It's called a slug, which is basically this URL. So we want to be able to navigate to a single blog post through this type of URL. So this is called a slug. It's basically an extension to the URL. And we can achieve this with an API that Gatsby exposes, which is called the onCreateNode API. And one thing that is quite important to understand at this point is the concept of nodes. So I don't know if you guys remember from before, when we looked at GraphQL, we saw that we had this nodes property. So in Gatsby, to understand what a node is, it's basically the center of Gatsby's data system. So all data that's added to Gatsby is modeled using nodes. So this is a crucial point in Gatsby, and we can use this concept to extend the data that we get from the Markdown through GraphQL. So in order to create a slug, we need to generate it. And the way we do that is by going to our code, opening this Explorer, and at the moment we need a file which is called Gatsby -node.js. So Gatsby -node.js. And I will paste in some code right now and yeah, go through what it really does. But for now, all that we're concerned with is basically getting this to run. So this is some code that I just pasted, and what we do here is that first and foremost we have this create file path, which we get from this package, the Gatsby source file system package, and this is the way we can create a slug. So this will help us creating a slug. As I mentioned before, a slug is just a file path, right, or a path to the actual page, which we will point to later on. So we're using the onCreateNode API, which exposes these three properties, and we basically get access to this function, which is in the actions object, and this will create a new field in the node, which is, as I mentioned before, in the GraphQL, a GraphQL node, so to say, and this new field will be our slug. So we just create the file path, and it's looking at the pages. Yeah, basically it looks if there is a markdown file, and it gets this slug, and yeah, it generates it for us, and then we just pass it in, and we will see it as a slug field. So if I run this, I think I need to restart the development. Yeah, it also warns me about it that you have to restart the development server. So I will just shut it down and start it again. So now the development server has restarted, and if I go to the GraphQL tool and I just reload it, so now we see it again, and I want to duplicate this tab and go into the GraphQL like this, and I want to run this query. Just as before, we see nothing special. But one thing that we also see now is that we have this fields property. And if I open this one, I see the slug. And if I click on it and run it, we get /first post. So this is very useful for us right now, because we can use this as our path to a single blog post. So this is very helpful. And now, if we just try to, for instance, I have this blog post with this slug. If I try to navigate to it, I will duplicate this tab too, just so that we keep the first tab. And if I go to this, we see the 404 Gatsby JS development page. So this means that there is no page right now, and that's totally logical, because at the moment, all we've done is generate a slug. We haven't actually created the page for the individual blog post. So let's do that. So one thing I will create now is a new component, which will be the single blog post component. So basically a page which will render when you navigate to an individual blog post. So let's create a folder which is called templates, and inside of it I want to create a blog post .js, and I want to use my shortcut, which is the RFC. Doesn't work all the time, yeah, now it does. So blog post, and I will say hello world blog post just for now, and we will improve this in a bit. So now if I reload this, it's still not doing anything because we haven't created the page yet. So now we need to add some logic in the Gatsby-Node.js file. So one thing that we need to improve it with is we need to import the path module, the node module, which is the path. It's not node, it's path. And then I need to use the create pages API, and I have some code here that I will just paste in, and I will walk you through what this does too. So this is another API which Gatsby.js exposes, and it gives us the GraphQL, which we can use to fetch data, and it also gives us the actions object, which has the create page function, and this will actually programmatically create a new page, basically dynamically create one for us. And when we look at this query, what it does is that it not only gives us the it looks into the markdown files and it gets the slug. So this is what we're interested in, the slugs field, the slug basically. And then we just loop through every single markdown file, and we create a page for each blog post. Because as we said before, or as I mentioned, every markdown file is a blog post. So we will create one page for every single one. And we need to call this function, which is the create page, and it needs some data, or it needs some configuration. And one thing is the path to that page, which will be the slug basically, and also the component which we will use, which is the one that I just added in the templates folder. So it goes to the templates folder and the blog post.js, and then we have this context object too, which we don't need to worry about that much at the moment. And now I need to do the same thing again. Basically, I need to restart the development server, so I will do that. Control-C and run again. So now the dev server is started again, and what I can do is basically reload this page, and it brings me to the actual page. So now we see that it's actually rendering this component. But what we don't get at the moment is the actual data about the blog post. So we're only seeing hard-coded text. We're not seeing anything dynamic here. So I will improve this by importing GraphQL from Gatsby. And I also need my my query. So this is, I'll just copy it and paste it in here. So this is the actual GraphQL query to basically find a markdown file with the slug. So we're using the slug and we're finding the markdown file through that slug. So what I can do is basically here we can expose this data object and add a const post data.markdown remark, and now I can just type out the title. So the title is the post.frontmatter.title, and the date is the post.frontmatter.date, and I can also use the author like this, post.frontmatter.author, and these two properties I have to add them, so date and author, because we want that too. And at the bottom, I think I don't need the HTML, I need the excerpt, I think. And at the bottom, I will just print everything out. Or, you know, actually, I will use the HTML, and I will render it as I will let React render the actual HTML like this, post.html, and later on I can just use destructuring just as before, but for now I think this is good enough. And now if I reload this page, where it's already reloaded, so now we actually see this blog post. This is really awesome. This is a huge improvement, and yeah, I think I like this. Let's move on to another topic, basically, or another feature that we want to add, and that's basically that if I go to /blog, I see the same blog, so this is not really useful. So I think I want to add a couple of more blogs, just so we can see that this is actually this will something is. So this is my second post, and I will write second here, and this can be, I can say, maybe I'll just add some random date, and this will be my third post, like this, third post, and this will be from 2021. Yeah, I'll just say today. Like this. And if I go to the blog post now we actually see all three blogs. So it's basically rendering out, reading through all my Markdown files and rendering the blogs. But one thing we need to do is that in our homepage, we want to have a link to the actual blog list, so to say. And in the blog post list, we want to link to every single post. I hope that makes sense. So I will go to the index.js. So this is our homepage, so to say. So one thing I want to do is to add, maybe I will add a div or something. And I want to have a link like this, my blog, and it has to point to somewhere, right? So it has to point to the blog slash blog, and I also want to import the link from the Gatsby package and save the file. And when I go back to here, I see the actual link, and it takes me to this list. And here I want to make sure that every single title is clickable and that it will direct me to the blog post. So in blog.js, I want to add a new link. So, or basically I want to make this title a link. So I will import the link like that. And I also need to extend this query. So now it will not only look at the front matter, it will also have fields, and here it will have a slug. So yeah, and then if I go to, actually one thing I will do, maybe I can do it later on, but for now let's just add the link. So like that, and it's an opening and closing tag. So the two attributes should point to the post dot fields dot slug. And now the links are clickable, and we can also see that it points to the actual blog. So if I click on this one, we get to this individual blog post. Now, one thing that we also would like to have is a link that points us back to the list, so that we can jump back and forth. So in the blog post.js, which is the template I added, I want to have yeah, maybe a link basically, or it can be that my back to list, and I will add the link here too, and all it does is pointing back to the blog, and I have to import this. So here, the link, and now we should see something happen here. Yes, we do. And if I go back to the list, I can jump back and forth, and this is work. It's really working. And one last thing that I noticed was that this is not a relative date at the moment. So I think this was how from now true, and now it should become relative. Yeah, and it is. So 10 days ago, and this one was a month ago. This one, yeah, in 3 minutes. So yeah, I think I'm quite happy with this at the moment. I don't know what else. How can we improve this? One thing that we can improve this with is truncating this, because right now it's reading out the entire excerpt. We don't want that, obviously, so we just want to have a truncated version. So in the blog.js, I can go to where is it? I think it's in the excerpt. We have to basically extend it, and here we have 3 properties. So one is the format, it should be plain. We have the prune length, which is basically how long do you want it to be, and I will allow 15 characters only, just to show you guys that it is truncating it, and the truncate should be set to true. So now if we go back, we see that it's truncating it, which is good. And one last thing before I end this is that I want to read out the list in a descending order by the date. So I don't want to just read everything out, but I want it to read in a certain date, or in a certain order. So it should be sorted. So here I will have the sort, and I will add fields, and it should point to the front matter. The syntax for this is quite special, and it should be in a descending order like this. But one thing that was missing is this, so the slash, and now it's working. So as I mentioned, this syntax is quite strange. I just found it in the documentations, but yeah, this is how it works. So this is how you sort things in GraphQL by using a field. And now hopefully this will work. Let me just bring it in, and it does. So as we see here now, the last post, which is the the most recent post, which is the third one, is at the top, and then it just goes down. So we see that the most recent one is the one that's at the top. And I think that this is more than enough for a beginner tutorial, and hopefully in the upcoming videos I will make this into a real blog, because one of my goals with this is also to add to create my own blog that I will have in my online portfolio, so that whenever I write the blog post, it will pop up in my own on my own site, basically. So this has a real use case for me personally, so I'm looking forward to move on with this tutorial, and I hope you guys found this useful. There's a lot of things that you can explore with Gatsby and GraphQL, a lot of cool features that Gatsby provides. So I hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. See you guys.